Welcome to our today's episode. In today's episode, we are going to try and unveil the frankly surprising reason why poor white MAGA voters keep voting against themselves. Why would poor white people vote against their interests and support a system that keeps them broke? A system that oppresses the poor while the rich grow richer. Did they re-elect Trump and MAGA administration willingly and knowingly, or they were deceived?
Oh why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again? They vote for Trump and the other MAGA politicians only to have every promise broken, prices go up, social supports evaporate. Here's why. First, remember what I talked about recently, the psychological wage of whiteness. That term was coined by W.E. Du Bois to describe poor white folks being paid with social status rather than decent living conditions. They're convinced by the elites that they're better than black folks, better than immigrants, Latinos, LGBTQ folks. They're convinced that being white puts them in the same league as the elites. Of course, the elites know otherwise, but the poor whites buy it because they're grasping at straws. Second, they are convinced that the people they're supposedly better than are the big threat in their lives. Not the rich, not the corporations or the politicians, but immigrants, black folks, welfare queens, LGBTQ, criminals, you know, the usual scapegoats. Third, the elites promise protection to poor white folks. A politician comes along and says, I'll keep those people in their place, or I'll kick them out, or I'll lock them up. Or, more politely, I'll defend your values. They don't say, I'll make your life better. Well, they say it, they just don't mean it. They'll say, I'll make sure they don't get ahead of you. Fourth, they vote for the punishment, not the policy. When a law gets passed that slashes public housing or school funding or food aid, they think, good, that'll stop those lazy freeloaders. And they do some mental gymnastics that make them believe it's worth losing those things for their own families in order to see those problematic black people and immigrants and so forth being punished. It gets to a point where just seeing those guys being punished is reward enough, which is pretty sick, but that's how behavior works. Their housing, schools, and groceries are on the chopping block too, but they blame that on Biden. Always a scapegoat. They get hit by the same policies they were told would punish the others, and they blame the wrong people. The system fails them, but they've been trained to blame the scapegoats, not the cause, which is the rich people, the people they voted for. So they think the problem is still those people, not the fact that they were personally manipulated by the people they voted for. They're basically saying, I'll take the hit as long as you don't help them, or worse, as long as you hurt them. That is the psychological wage Du Bois was talking about, the trade-off between material security for racial status. And that's a crying shame, folks.
In 1935, W.E.B. Du Bois's concept of the psychological wage of whiteness, which refers to the social and psychological benefits that white people receive regardless of socioeconomic status, serving as a form of racial privilege that sustains racial inequality. This wage provides a sense of superiority, identity, and social validation to white individuals, often offsetting economic disadvantages and reinforcing systemic racism. W.E.B. Du Bois warned us in 1935 about the psychological wage of whiteness. He saw how poor white people were given just enough status to keep them loyal to a system that exploited them too. Today, Trump runs the same con. He doesn't improve their lives, he gives them the illusion of being above someone else. That illusion costs them healthcare, wages, and rights. Even if white folks had nothing, no land, no wealth, no power, they were still taught one thing: at least you're not black. This illusion is powerful and deadly because it gives poor white people just enough status to feel better than someone else. They are poor, but they are white, and that makes them feel rich in comparison to other races in the same financial bracket. They are poor and suffering, but the emotional payoff keeps them coming back. It's not stupidity. It's strategy that whiteness is sold as a reward, and it's working exactly as intended.
In 1935, W.E.B. Du Bois identified the psychological wage of whiteness. Trump's been selling the same fake paycheck ever since. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote in Black Reconstruction in America that after the Civil War, poor white people didn't get money or land. What they got was status. The police, courts, public schools, social space all treated them better just because they were white. That's the psychological wage of whiteness. It didn't fill their bellies, but it made them feel superior. And that feeling kept them from uniting with black people against the wealthy elite who were exploiting both groups. Fast forward to today. My working class relatives still vote for Trump. Not because he's delivered, he hasn't. They keep voting for him because he hands them that same imaginary status. He talks like they matter more, like they're being targeted by others, those immigrants or those people with dark skin. He gives them that rush of being the real Americans. He makes them feel like they're part of the elite crowd. He gives them that rush of being the real Americans, feeling like they're winning, even as their health care gets gutted and paychecks shrink. That's not leadership. That's emotional manipulation. It's the same scam Du Bois described, rewrapped for modern TV viewers. We have been hoodwinked. All that status is a mirage. It cannot buy groceries. It cannot fix your kid's asthma. It cannot lower your prescription costs. But it keeps us fighting against each other so that the real elites never have to get their hands dirty. And they don't have to pay a dime. Recognize the scam. Call it out. One share says you're done with the bullshit. I am not an expert. I'm just an avid learner. You can be.
They march to the polls thinking they are shoving it up to the freeloaders, black folks, Latinos, Mexicans, and other immigrants. Yet they make Trump, his elite billionaires' buddies, and other politicians rich at the expense of their salaries, healthcare, education, and other sources of income. They support the system with their mind and soul, but what do they get in return? Broken promises, higher food and food production costs, gutted schools, gutted economy, and healthcare collapsing.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation. September's upon us, harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China for this current crop that's about to come out of the field. Historically, over the last 5 years, about a third of soybean sales to China would be booked. China amounts to 25% of our total U.S. soybean crop. So that would be 8 or 9% of the whole U.S. crop would normally be on the books with China right now, and we have 0. That is alarming. The farm economy as a whole is struggling. Inflation has caused our cost of production to rise drastically on every front. Commodity prices, in particular soybeans, are down about 50% from where they were 3 years ago. And our numbers are deeply in the red. And we send this letter to President Trump because we've been talking for months about needing to have sales in place, a deal in place, a phase 2 type agreement that has purchase commitments along with a level playing field on trade with no tariffs. And we haven't had anything happen, unfortunately. And our appeal to President Trump and his administration is make soybeans a priority in any trade negotiations that are taking place. Soybeans are the #1 agriculture export to China. And in the last trade war, it was 71% of the losses that we had as American farmers. And they're critical.
This is what our shitty-ass healthcare has come to. Where my patients need medicine and supplies, and their insurance won't cover it, and here I am spending my own money because my patient needs it, and he doesn't have any money, and he can't work. And the insurance won't even cover what he needs. And I'm sad and I'm sick and tired of it.
Imagine being a teacher or a principal in a school in a red state which depends on funding, federal funding from the Department of Education, and still voting for Donald Trump. What am I talking about? Watch.
CNN analysis found the 15 states that most rely on federal funding for its public schools in 2022 all voted for Trump.
And I voted for President Trump.
I mean, you're an educator. You didn't vote for Trump eliminating federal funds.
No, I did not vote for that. I voted for President Trump to make America first again. If we have
You fell for a
federal
slogan.
cuts, then that's going to mean bigger classroom sizes. I would lose teachers, first and foremost. It's devastating.
I don't think that anyone in our county wants to cut our school funding. I don't think that anyone voted for that.
Do you mind if I ask who you voted for in the election?
I voted for Donald Trump.
We all know and understand that red states, the education is abysmal, that they are always on the bottom of the docket when it comes to test scores, reading levels. They are horrible. And here we have two educators that know that their states, their schools depend on federal funding, depend on them, yet they didn't bother to do the basic research of what their candidate was going to do. They fell for a slogan. Instead of listening to all the times Trump said he was going to get rid of the Department of Education, that he was going to go after LGBTQ people, that he was going to get rid of DEI, that he was going to do all of these things, and looking at the bills that have been happening in red states, instead of actually doing the minimal bit of research, they fell for a slogan and thought, well, I never thought that this would happen. So I guess these red states are just going to have to pick themselves up by the bootstraps, right? Because they voted for this, and now they're getting what they voted for. All my love.
Poor white MAGA voters, black folks, Latinos, and all other immigrants face the same challenges and suffering during Trump's administration, but the elites didn't just create a racial hierarchy, they weaponized it so the working class would never unite. Think about it. We all have the same interests and a common enemy, but never joined forces. Why? Because whiteness is being sold as a reward. Voting against healthcare. Opposing equity. Clinging to racial privilege while suffering in silence. This is manipulation. It's like a cult. Subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes.